Ever since Rogue Red stripped her of her mutant powers, Storm has been on the hunt for the ancient demon Egoun who she had once devoured. The spirit broke free of his cage and plunged this already chaotic world into further destruction. But Storm is far from helpless even without her mutant powers, for in her veins runs mystic blood over 20,000 years old. Egoun means to spill that blood now, but Storm never goes down easily. On this moonlit night, two bitter adversaries stare each other down. On one side, the ancient spirit Egoun, grinning sadistically as the remains of the world's greatest mystics lie lifeless atop his spiky back. And on the other side stands Ororo Munroe of the Ozuri tribe. She is the culmination of thousands and thousands of years of divine and mystic blood, all leading to this moment. From her ancestor Ashake of Nubia, the scholar sorceress, who refined the shadow path. Further back to Aisha, the Rain Queen of Balubedo, who was the first sorcerer supreme, and whose unbridled fury caused the great cataclysm that drowned Atlantis. And even further back still, all the way to Ashtar herself, the bright lady of the dawn, and one of Earth's elder gods. Now in the present, Ororo stands, a weapon of warfare. She reaches deep into her arsenal and pulls out Ashake's shadow path, a mystical rite that allows mortals to commandeer the divine abilities of immortal gods. She calls upon one who she has crossed paths with before. She summons the power of Shango. The army of Oshun fishmen stand at her back as her hair is set ablaze. Mystical horns form a crown as she begins her onslaught. Now her very breath is hellfire, which claims her victims in a single blast. What few remain meet a gory end at Storm's battle axe. But in truth, these fishmen stopped being men long ago. Egoun saw to that. All that remains are soulless, troubled corpses. But nevertheless, Storm stands triumphant, as the flames of her attack ignite the ground and illuminate the sky. All that remains now is Egoun himself, and after all he's done, she would have it no other way. Years ago, Egoun escaped the imprisonment imposed upon him by the universe. His first act of war was against Storm herself, as he claimed her sanctuary in Atlanta. A 10-day battle then commenced between the Weather Witch and the Ancient Spirit, where she set herself ablaze with bloodlust, at the end of which she could barely stand. But she had managed to subdue the spirit and trap it within her own broken body. The unquenchable evil that now burned within Ororo's bones caused her powers to go awry, so she secluded herself in her homeland to mitigate the damage on the environment, with her storm engines restraining her, just in case she completely lost control. But the very act she took to save the planet was now dooming it, for as her powers continued to rage out of control, the Sahara's endless winter caused a ripple effect on the entire planet, including the Amazon rainforest that suffered droughts and wildfires. Storm knew that this would only lead to further aggression from the world's armies as they closed in to kill her, but she could not save them from her storm engines. If she were to even lift a finger to tell them to halt, Egoun might break free, so their deaths were inevitable. But soon even these efforts would be in vain, as Rogue Red and her uncanny X-Force decimated the storm engines. And then, with the lethality of her power-absorbing abilities, brought Storm's ongoing war with Egoun to a close. But this too was in vain, for Rogue had no idea that by taking out Storm, she'd be releasing an even bigger threat upon the world. And after suffering Akujin's treachery at the tip of her blade, she was in no shape to fight this spirit. But luckily for them, help was on the way, in the form of Jericho and Daniel Drum. The Gunner of Gods assaults the evil spirit with a mighty flying kick, but Egoun responds by slamming him into the ground so hard that he loses his breath. Egoun walks with his accomplice by his side, dragging Jericho Drum by his hair and adding insult to injury by telling him how helpless he is. He is from everlasting to everlasting, as inevitable as the insects that crawl upon the ground and the celestial bodies in the sky. Yet, while Jericho Drum seems defeated, he is anything but. He seizes this opportunity to speak forth words of his own, enacting a quantum incarceration. The three fighters are now locked away in Dr. Voodoo's mindscape. The spell that sent them here was paired with the Sands of Nisanti, which prevents all magic users in its radius from using any mystic abilities for 3 whole minutes. More than enough time for Ororo Munroe and Rogue to retreat. The evil spirit grins in his own iconic fashion. He's grown to like Dr. Voodoo in this short amount of time, and he plans to demonstrate his newfound liking for Dr. Voodoo in the most sadistic of ways. But as Jericho Drum's life ebbs out of him, he knows that Egoun will meet his end soon enough. And as breath prepares to leave his lungs for good, breath fills Storm's lungs once again. She immediately tends to Rogue Red, who's bleeding out onto the snow. As a final request, she asks Ororo to sacrifice her to bring her team back. If given time, Storm might find a way to do that, but that day is not today. Storm lacks the mutant powers and the magical know-how to save Rogue. She's lost so much blood that even she cannot seal this wound to save herself with Storm's powers. As she inches closer to death, Rogue laments her own existence and begs Storm for forgiveness for what she's done. But Storm has already forgiven her friend. She then kneels in front of Anna Marie and imparts an incantation over her. Rogue doesn't understand the words that Storm speaks, but she knows how desperately she wants to live. If there is a god to hear her, she wishes that this god would grant her more time. Time to spend with her loved ones, her family, her husband, even Rogue Green. But she does not die in this moment. She glows bright blue and white as if covered in ice, then vanishes into thin air, leaving behind her beloved knuckle dusters. Storm knows indeed how badly Anna Marie wanted to live, and she will see to it that she does. But first, she must prepare. As the years go by, Storm trains and plans, hiding her instruments of war in the same caves that the Mau Mau freedom fighters used to call home. She also trains herself in the mystic arts, as the outside world plunges deeper and deeper into chaos. Partly at the hands of Revelation, as he ushers in a new age crafted in his dark image, and also at the hands of Egoun, as he claims the world's great mystics, one after another. At one point, he even crossed blades with Shuri, daughter of T'Chaka, sister of T'Challa. But the daughter of Bast was not able to quell this evil, so the responsibility would again fall on Ororo Munroe's shoulders, catching us up to the present. But this time, she's ready, for she's perfected the spell. The Sands of Nisanti's time limit has been expanded beyond 3 minutes into 1 full hour. She banishes him and his remaining Fishman soldiers into a marsh of many mires, her own mindscape. There will be no more magic use. This feud will be settled with iron and blood. Egoun goes to bargain with Asante in his own classic evil fashion, while sicking his Akujin against Storm. But the descendant of Ashake is never without power. She takes revenge for Gateway. She takes revenge for the Uncanny X-Force. And with brutal efficiency, she takes revenge for Rogue Red. But these aren't the only combatants in this mindscape. A surviving war beast launches a missile at Storm, but her warrior's prowess will not be bested by this technology. She slices the missile in half and shields herself from its detonation. The beast tries to lecture Ororo of Azuri of the finer ways of war, but in his soliloquy he drops his guard and doesn't notice the storm lurking beneath him. All it takes is a single poisoned dart to claim vengeance for the storm engines. Hours later, back in the physical world, Gambit rises to a familiar sound, the voice of his beloved Anna Marie, and she's ready to fight. Rogue Red is back and in perfect health, but at the cost of Ororo herself. She wants to honor the memory of her friend and be the bigger person like Ororo would, but she can't get over what Gambit's done. Just like she can't forget all the memories she shared with Gambit over the years. Gambit admits and apologizes for his betrayal. It's filled him with great shame over all these years. And now he's ready to make amends. To literally ride into the sunset with Rogue Red. It seems that a god did answer Rogue Red's prayers all those years ago. She's been given more time. It was just a different god than she had imagined. That same goddess now stands, bow and arrow in hand, ready to end this fight between herself and Egoun. Daniel Drum offers his assistance one last time, but she tells him no. She has everything she needs to end this herself. She has offered herself as a living sacrifice so that her beloved Rogue Red can be reborn anew. But before her time on this earth is done, Storm will smite evil one last time. I will say right off the bat that this was a big old mixed bag for me. I liked a lot of the parts of this issue, but the sum total, we'll get to it. Let's start with the good though. I love how we got to see Ororo get into her dark side with magic, pun intended. I know some folks don't like seeing her be this brutal and using all this dark magic, but since this is an alternate future story, I'm basically reading this as one big what if. Also, I think this is the most time we've spent with a Storm that's adept with magic since we had full Mage Storm all the way back in the Magic comic. The one who had been captured and trained in magic by Belasco. Actually, this Storm and Limbo Storm share a lot of the same traits. Both dedicate themselves solely to the pursuit of magic to defeat a powerful demon, leading to them becoming a world-class sorceress. Speaking of world-class sorceresses, Munroe wasted no time linking Ororo's long family line of sorceresses to Oster herself. Now he's been laying breadcrumbs all throughout the Storm solo series, going all the way back to Dr. Voodoo's line in issue 2, about how Storm shares blood with Agamotto. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that there had been a direct link between her family and Oster prior to now. I know that Oster's been her family's patron deity, but to straight up say that Oster started the family line, that's something completely new. He also added that Aisha caused the Great Cataclysm, aka Big Ass Flood, which instantly brings to mind Storm's Rage Goddess mode, and it's easy to connect the dots. And unlike the retcon in Storm issue 12, where Munroe had Eternity create the Elder Gods just to fight Oblivion, this new piece of lore isn't universe altering in nearly as big of a way. Plus, apparently, there's a bunch of different reasons given for the Great Cataclysm in Marvel. Storm's ancestral grandma is just now one of them. By the way, I've done a huge deep dive on Storm's entire maternal family line, so if you're into that type of stuff, check the description for a link. Last but not least, I love how trippy this issue got. The mystical side of Marvel is one that I don't think we get enough time with. I may not be familiar with all the different spells and all the different deities and spirits being evoked here, but I still love it. Unfortunately, it doesn't hit as well as I think it would have if this story was being told better. And this is as good a time as any to get into the criticisms. I'm no stranger to Munroe's non-linear storytelling, and it usually doesn't bother me. But this time, it completely took me out of the story. When you've got a present day story, which is technically 10 years into the future, and then you're going back 5 years to tell how this next part happened, but then you cut back to years before that to show how all this started, but then you don't even say how many years back it is. It's literally everything, everywhere, all at once. We got like 7 to 8 issues worth of story crammed into 3. And instead of focusing on the very interesting and very compelling things that are happening in the 10 years ahead and in the 5 years ahead, we also gotta jump back to when all this shit went down, which we don't even know exactly when that started because there's no time that says when. We just know that this is when Egoun got out of somewhere and then he started tearing ass in Atlanta. Also, is this ignoring everything that happened in Storm's series when Eternal Storm defeated and then ingested Egoun, then put his essence into Maggot? Did all of that just not happen now? If so, that's just wildly unnecessary because the text could have easily just recalled back to when Maggot was killed by the FBI agent's voodoo and just say Egoun escaped because Maggot was dead and he started to make good on his threat to destroy the world because that's what he said he was gonna do right after he killed Storm and right before he started fighting Dr. Doom. But instead now you've got him bursting out of this mountaintop in Kenya. If that's not what's happening, then please point me to somewhere where Munroe said that that's not what actually happened. If it's in a live stream somewhere or he's tweeted it, let me know where it is and I'll go check it out. Munroe said at the end of issue 12 of Storm that Rogue Storm will have sweeping ramifications in the present timeline. So that tells me that all this shit's supposed to be connected. How is everything supposed to be connected if the thing that's happening in this story is different from the way it happened before? Now it's gonna go back to being the way it happened the first time in the new story?
It don't make sense.
But wait, there's more!
I think the biggest letdown of this issue was how little time we spent with Ororo developing her magical powers. It was dope to see her call upon the powers of Shango. It was dope to see her studying the sands of Nisanti. And it was dope to see her unleash all of that on Egoun and his forces. And maybe I'm in the minority here, but like, I would have loved to see more of that. More of her with Daniel Drum. More of her studying all this deep, ancient, mystic knowledge. And yet again, we got a bunch of talk about the ancestors, but we don't ever see the ancestors. That's weird. Oh, and if you haven't read the issue for yourself, then you may be wondering, why did it end like that? Why did it end with these two squaring up for one big last attack? Did it just end on a cliffhanger? Well, it did. And that's because the story isn't actually over. The story will continue in the Age of Revelation finale.
Okay.
Great. I love it. Thank you so much, Marvel. You did it again. You did what you always do. You let me down by not letting me down. I knew you'd do it. You couldn't help yourself. You just couldn't help yourself. And you could have done something good here, but oh no. Fucking Age of Revelation. Here's a revelation for you. Stop doing this bullshit! Stop it! I want to throw up, Marvel! I'm tired! I'm so tired of these fans! Do you want me to make a video about it? Because if you do, I'll do it. I'll do it for you. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm talking out my ass. Feel free to let me know if I am. And then click this video right here to get more Weather Witch Goddessness in your life. And until next time, keep on simping.